Hello, welcome to our Life Hacks program. Today we will be talking about car insurance and buying a car. Please welcome Daniel and Tayton.
Would you like to go first?
You go ahead.
Sure. So my name is Tatton Manning. I'll introduce myself, and then I'll let Ms. Weaver introduce herself. I am the dealer principal and the founder of Patriot Auto Group. We have 6 car dealerships across the state, 2 in Bartlesville. But the ones in Bartlesville are probably the reason I'm be talking to you. Better interest rates, so if you are borrowing money on the vehicle, then those cars have incentives on them. And so if you're looking, for instance, in the fall, you might have big incentives on a new car versus a used car. The prices are what they are. Also, as we move further along into the digital age, we can see when cars have had wrecks and when they haven't. The good thing about a new car is you shouldn't have to worry about any previous bad maintenance or a history of a wreck. Also, on a new vehicle, for instance, a new Hyundai, you're going to get 3 years and 36,000 miles maintenance covered, whereas on a used car, depending on the dealer or the person, you'll be responsible for the maintenance yourself. So basically, less risks of unforeseen expenses. On a used car, the big thing is they're less expensive. So you're going to save money, and then if you are someone who thinks that your needs may change or your wants may change, then you won't lose as much money buying a used car as you would on a new. So I think those are very, very good things to look at in buying a new versus a used. If you go to thinking about paying cash or getting a loan, so the pros for cash are no interest expense. If it's $10,000, you save $10,000 and you're done. And you immediately own the vehicle. There would be no liens on a title that you have to deal with later, which we'll talk about when we get to title. And then there's no chance that you would borrow money on the car and then maybe wreck it and owe more money than what it's worth when you wreck it. And so really it's a one-time, one and done, and you can be very confident that this is the max you're going to pay for that car. The pros for a loan would be you have less upfront cost. As we go along, people want to check our credit for everything from a utility bill to a home mortgage to a car. And if you build credit on a vehicle and you do a good job, then it gives you the chance to do more things. So you can build that solid history. You can also save. If you've saved cash, you can save that, keep that for other investments or other expenses and things like that. So those would be the pros for a loan. So next I'll talk about research that you might want to do and documents that you might want to have. And then at any time we can talk maybe on documents to go over to insurance. Mm-hmm. So you want to research the manufacturers. You want to research sort of the person that they go after. So if you think, for instance, I'm going to be outdoors and I'm going to be traveling, you might want to think about a Jeep. You might want to think about Subaru. If you say, I'm going to be doing 100 miles a day, I live in Bartlesville, I'm going to drive to Tulsa, you might think about a small car where you can get good mileage, or you might think, I'm going to be on the road a lot, I want to be in a big car, so if I have an accident, I win. And so those are kind of things you might want to think about. You want to really look at fuel economy. You don't want to fall in love with a Yukon XL and think that you're going to get 35 miles to the gallon in that car. You want to look at those things. So also models, seat configurations, towing configurations. We have some customers that come in and they say, I need a 3/4 ton truck. I'm going to be pulling my boat. And then they find out that their boat weighs 4,000 pounds and they could pull that with a 1/2 ton truck and save money and be more comfortable. If you need a 3/4 ton, there's no other truck for you. But if you don't, that 1/2 ton is a much better ride than that 3/4 ton. So think about sort of those non-negotiables. For instance, I have 4 children. We could not get in a 2-row sedan. And for instance, we take children with us to church. So we need a 2nd-row bench where we can legally seat more people. And so those are the things that you really want to think through. And thankfully, we can change vehicles. So I got my wife one with 2nd-row buckets. It didn't work, so we switched out and got her the bench. But I found out the hard way, and even though I'm a car dealer, it still cost me money. Documents. So in order to buy a vehicle, you're going to need to come in and show us a driver's license. It always helps if your address on your license matches the address you give us where you live. You're going to need proof of insurance or a plan for insurance. For instance, if you come in and you don't have insurance, you need to have talked to Danielle or somebody like that and have said, this is what I think I'm going to buy. You need to know what insurance costs on the particular type of car you're looking for. If you come in and buy a new Vette and you're 16, Danielle might say no, but she might say yes, but it's going to be a certain dollar amount, and there's no room for her to really change that. It's a lot more than if you bought a Hyundai Sonata. And if it's your first or second time buying a car, you're also going to need to be able to provide proof of income and also proof of residency, so gas bills, electric bills, things like that. I think also it's a good thing to think about because if you're providing a driver's license, proof of income, and proof of residency, you want to ask how that information is going to be treated and how it's going to be safeguarded. So one of the things that we've worked to do is we put that in a digital system, and so those are safeguarded. And so just be careful, just be mindful, and just ask that question. I think that's something good to think about. Next is going to be knowing all the costs of owning a car, and maybe I can stop and you can talk about insurance costs, and then I can go into gas and maintenance.
Okay, sure. Okay, so first I'm going to start with the coverages on your policy. This is something that's very important, and enough people don't know what they have. So under Oklahoma law, you're required to have liability at the bare minimum. You can't drive unless you have liability insurance. And the state limits for us, the minimum limit is $25,000 for bodily injury per person, $50,000 total, and then $25,000 for property damage. So what that means, if you cause an accident, your insurance company would pay up to $25,000 for the injury that you caused to someone else, and up to $25,000 for property damage that you caused to someone else. So if you damage their car, or if you run into a business's sign, or you run into your friend's garage, or something like that, $25,000 is the max if you choose state minimum. So you want to make sure you know what limits you have, because once insurance pays their limit, you're personally responsible for the rest. So if you cause a 3-car accident and you have state minimums, you're likely going to get a hefty bill from somebody. So you want to make sure you know what your limits are. Second, if you have a loan on the vehicle, that bank is going to require you carry comprehensive and collision. And banks have different requirements for what deductibles they'll allow. So many times we have people come in the office or call and say, well, we've got a loan on it, so we need full coverage. Insurance people don't use that term, and we don't like that term, because that gives a false impression that you're fully covered if you're in an accident, and that's not the case. So you're always going to have limits, you're always going to have deductibles. So when you do get your loan, make sure you know what the maximum deductible is that your bank will allow. Usually that's $1,000. Some of them will let you go higher than that, but most won't let you go above $1,000. Another benefit you can get on your policy is emergency road service. That would pay for your towing, your service calls for running out of the gas or getting a flat tire. Those types of things are available on your insurance policy if you choose to add that. Rental car reimbursement is another option you can get. If your vehicle is in the shop for repairs and you aren't going to be able to afford to get a rental car and pay for it out of your own pocket, then this coverage might be something you want. Again, there's limits on that, so make sure that you're aware of which level of benefit you choose. And finally, uninsured motorist is another important coverage to put on your policy. This is something that would pay for your injuries if an uninsured driver hits you. Again, there's limits. So it starts at $25,000 and goes up from there. Over 30% of the drivers in Oklahoma don't have insurance, even though it's required. So that's an important thing to look at. Now, there's other coverages you can add. There's loss of earnings, accidental death, medical, all these different things. But these are some of the big ones that you want to look at that really affect the cost when you're looking for a car. There's many factors that go into the premium. So you're going to have individual factors, personal factors, and vehicle factors. For the personal factors, age, marital status, where you live, how many miles you drive every year, your driving record of the people in your household, that can also affect your rates. As far as the vehicle factors, those are very specific. So when someone calls us for a price, we like to know the VIN number so we can check that exact model. There's all kinds of features of a vehicle that can influence the premium. For example, if you buy a car that has really good safety features, things like the autonomous braking or lane change alerts, those kinds of things, those help to reduce the number of accidents. But if that vehicle is in an accident, those parts cost more to replace. So when you're shopping for insurance, make sure you kind of know what kind of vehicle you're looking for, because the cost can vary greatly. And you don't want to go in there with a monthly budget of what you can afford to pay for your vehicle payment and then be surprised with your insurance payment.
Danielle, that made me think of a question.
Mm-hmm.
You said the state limits are a certain amount.
Right.
What do you generally recommend your customers keep on their vehicles?
So it's different for everybody. It's an individual choice. You always have to look at what you can afford. But what I like to ask people is, if someone sues you because of an accident, what do you have that they can take? Do you have all these assets? Do you have future earnings that are going to increase? And once you can kind of figure that out, then that's what you want to protect.
So if someone were thinking about buying a car, how many days in advance would they want to come see you?
So someone can call us while they're at the dealership. Of course, as long as we're not on the phone with someone else, you want to make sure to give yourself plenty of time, not call, 5 minutes before closing on Friday. You're more likely to get through a little bit earlier. But if you call us with the year, make, model, VIN, mileage, if you know who your loan company is going to be with, who's going to be driving that car, if you've got a new teenage driver in the house, as much as you may not want to tell us that because those rates are going to be, more, you need to disclose that, because if you don't, that can affect coverages. And the last thing you want to do is have an accident and then be surprised that something isn't covered.
Okay, but you can do it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Okay. So going into the cost of owning a vehicle, so insurance is going to be a piece of it. Gas expenses are going to be a piece of it. Maintenance, and then tag, tax, and title. So maintenance, depending on the car, you are going to be able to, for instance, if you buy it at a dealer, you're going to be able to look and see what's required for time and mileage over the term of how long you expect to own it, or how long it's covered by a warranty. And so we can give you some of those items and give you those costs for each vehicle. If you buy it from an individual, you may or may not get that. So I think you can look at those as you're doing your research, and you could call us and say, hey, how much does an oil change cost on a new Elantra? How much does it cost on a new GMC truck? And so we can tell you those items and then walk through the maintenance schedule with you. On your tag, tax, and license, so when you buy a vehicle in the state of Oklahoma, your tax is 4.5% of the purchase price. And so the way the timeline works is you buy the vehicle, for instance, today. You would have 1 month, so February the 28th, it would be due for you to go pay the tag, tax, and license. And so 4.5% of the price of the vehicle, you would have to pay the tag office for the state of Oklahoma, and that can be a big dollar amount. If you're thinking about moving to Kansas, it's over 8%, and we are very close to Kansas. So just think about those dollar amounts, and that needs to be, for instance, if you think about what dollar amount you want to put down, make sure you also think about, hey, I've got a $20,000 car, it's going to be $800 in tax alone, and then I've got the tag and the license. So just think about those kind of upfront costs. That tax expense is probably the most overlooked piece of buying a car. I think that's where a lot of stress is caused after the vehicle is purchased, because, for instance, as a car dealer, we sell cars every single day, and we understand that those costs are going to go. It's not part of our transaction, and so we don't discuss it. But when you go out and you do tag that vehicle, then it's going to be a big piece. So just think about those expenses. So the next item that I have on here is the pros and cons of using a private seller versus a dealership. So there are pros to using a private seller. I think if you have a family member or a friend with a vehicle that works for what you want, I think that can be a really good option. For instance, we have a Honda dealership in Ardmore. Lots and lots of our trade-ins aren't trade-ins. They say, I've got my Accord, I'm going to get a new Accord, and I'm going to give this one to a family member. Or my brother's son said, if I ever get rid of this, I'm going to give it to them, and so they sell it to them. And so I think those are good options. And then those are really good options for older, less expensive cars, high mileage cars. So as a new car dealer, I'm not going to keep many 1998s with 150,000 miles because I can't warranty those cars. Those are dangerous cars for me to have. We do have some of them, but it's not going to be what we do mostly. So the pros of a dealership, and I'm going to talk about a new car dealer, not a strictly used car dealer. Although as a new car dealer, we sell new and used cars, and I'll tell you why I'm talking from a new car dealer perspective. So one of the things about me is I'm required to keep certain levels of customer satisfaction ratings. I have to keep a new car license, a used car license, and I'm very, very beholden to what customers say about us. And so you can know that on a used car that we sell, it's going to have been serviced and inspected. We'll be able to give you documents on that, show you what we replaced. We could put the vehicle up on a lift if you wanted to see the items we replaced. And then you're also going to be able to obtain near instant financing. We have some customers that instead of trading, they say they're going to sell their vehicle, and then they come back to us in a month and they say, well, I owe $20,000 and I'm selling my vehicle for $15,000. What do I do when I sell the vehicle? And you go, well, you have to pay the bank the $5,000, and they don't want to wait around on it. They want it now. And so just think about those things, if you're going to be selling that or not. When you come in and you trade a car in with us, then we will know you have to add that money in, and you have to pay for that, or you've got equity, and it's going to count as down payment. So we can help with those things. Ability to trade in a wide range of vehicles. You know, we had somebody trade in a 1940s car at one of our stores last week. We traded in an H1 Hummer, which for you people 16, they weren't even making them when you were born, but they're still worth a lot of money. And so it's a unique thing. And then we're going to have staff that understand if you're looking at buying a car that has good mileage with these features, we should be able to get you to that vehicle quickly. So the process of buying a car, what type of paperwork to expect? It's a lot more paperwork than you would expect. There's lots and lots of disclosures. What happens? Somebody makes a mistake, a law is passed, we have to do a new piece of paper over and over and over. And so one of the big things you're going to have is a contract. In the contract, it's going to have a truth in lending disclosure. In that truth in lending disclosure, it's going to be a set out box on this massive contract. But you can look at it. It's going to say the price of the vehicle. It's going to say the total of payments, which means if this is a 60-month contract, you pay for it 60 months, you're going to have interest on there. It'll tell you the total dollar amount that you would pay on the whole vehicle. It's there for a reason. Read through it. If you have a question, definitely ask. It's a big, big, big purchase. People get nervous. They forget things. So make sure you just look at that truth in lending disclosure. If you have any questions, you can generally find it right there. You're going to have a buyer's order, which is something you'll need when you go to the tag office. You're going to have mileage statements. It's going to say how many miles are on your car. One of the common things that we forget in our paperwork is when the vehicle gets stocked in at our dealership, it probably has 8 miles. For instance, if somebody drove that car overnight, brought it back, it might have 58 miles. If the car has 58 miles and it says 8 miles on the statement, say, nope, let's get that changed. They can change it really quickly. When that mileage is put in the system, that becomes when your warranty starts. It's a very important thing. We want to get that right. Also, any trade-ins, it'll have mileage statements on that. Lots of disclosures, full coverage insurance requirements. And then also you'll need to make sure you bring a trade title if you have that. And then the staff at the dealership will help you fill that out correctly. So understanding a car title. This is one of the most, well, there's not a lack of knowledge. There's a large lack of knowledge on titles. They're complicated. There's lots of places to sign, places you don't want to sign, seller signs here, buyer signs there. Make sure you ask questions. So the titles don't come automatically when you buy the car. When you go, when you complete your paperwork at the tag office, then the state will send you a title. In the state of Oklahoma, if you have a lien on the title, it'll show that XYZ Bank, Arvest Bank, Truity Credit Union will show on there. When you do pay off your loan, they will send you something called a lien release. That is a very complicated term for I paid off my loan. And so you want to have that. And so if you come to a dealership and it says, hey, there's a loan on this, you say, nope, here's my lien release. And then they say, okay, that car's free and clear. Let's see, I think just ask questions on your title. If you bought a car a month ago and you want to come in, we'll walk through all those things with you, but just ask lots of questions. So that's all I have. I'm good to answer any questions. I get asked that a lot. And so what I would say is, depending on the car, there are better times of the year to buy. For instance, if you want to get last model year when the next model year is coming, that's generally going to be okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for joining us for our Life Hacks program. We'll see you soon. Bye.